Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to see you. Welcome in to session one for September. I I'm delighted to be here with you. I've missed you very much too. And tonight we have some exciting work to do around Mercury and communication. This whole month is completely focused on your throat. You can ring my bell. That's horrible. Anyway, I'm ringing your bell to tell you we have work to do with Mercury. I am here with you. Um, Amy says my face is not visible. Can you guys not see my face? My camera looks real good to me. Alexis, let me know if there's something wrong with my camera. I hope there's nothing wrong with my camera. It's been a weird week. So I want to say that some of you may not have come to New Moon last night, which is totally okay. And some of you may not be on social media very much, which is totally okay. But I do want to tell you so that you're aware that my mom passed away on August 28th. And I'm not one for, it's blurry. It's so weird. It looks real clear to me. Alexis, you'll let me know if it's blurry. So I want to let you know that I'm here with you today out of sheer stubbornness, because I don't like to cancel classes and I don't like to not do things. But my mother has died, and very unexpectedly, and so I may not be able to get through 2 hours. I may start crying unexpectedly. I may not be able to hold a space the way I always do, and I have to ask for your compassion as I move through the alchemy of this particular moment. So please be patient with me, but I did not want to move class, or we already are rescheduling session 4 of last month because she had just died and I couldn't come live with you. So anyway, in case you didn't know that my mom had died, my mom has crossed, and she was not expected to cross, so this was an extreme shock for my family, who's very close-knit. And I'm going to be concluding class right at 6 p.m. tonight because I need to get to my dad's house. I spend each evening with him. This is a real shock to my dad, who's been with her for 50 years, and not to have her at home. So thank you. And and truthfully, what I want to tell you is I'm not here to make this about me or my grief. And I have learned through this experience, it's really interesting. I've learned a lot through this experience that there are some people who have said to me, Athena, I can't communicate with you right now because this is too much for me. You and your grief is too much, and so it invokes my grief, and I can't communicate with you right now, which I actually think is really beautiful, that people can articulate that, because I'd rather people be honest than just not say anything at all. And some people have told me I can't hold you in this time because it's too much for me. And I'm not here to make your class about me and my process, but I did want you to know, in case I start crying or something triggers something, I literally, it's only been about 9-10 days, so this is very new to me. So thank you for seeing me. Thank you for just being able to hold the fact that this is happening. So if my makeup doesn't look good or my nails are all fucked up, I'm just going through a lot right now. And thank you. It's okay. I have spent my life being too much for people, including for my mom sometimes. So being too much for people is very familiar territory for me. And for those of you who are sometimes too much for other people, what I will tell you is it's okay. That's been my human path to walk, is that I'm often too much for people to hold. But I'm lucky enough that I've been able to find people and places in my life that are deep enough that they can hold me, so that I don't need everybody to hold me, kind of thing. It's a lesson that we learn as we move forward. Well, but I have some people who are very honest with me. Which is, I'll tell you something. I'm going to tell you this, and this is always true. I would rather know how you feel candidly than have you not communicate. I had one cousin who just would not respond to any messages. And I'd rather know that it was just too much for that cousin rather than not hear anything at all. You know what I mean? So, anyway, if I am too much, just know I'm working through it. If I'm not too much, great, you can hold it. You know what I mean? But I'll meet you where you are. And, but I am really happy to be with you for tonight's class. I really, really am. And these are all opportunities to learn, right? Like what people can hold and what they can't hold, and when they can hold it and when they can't hold it. And also, for me, what I've learned, does this resonate with any of you? This is all relevant to what we're learning this year, by the way. Don't you think? Don't you think? What I am learning too is that there are some people older than me who can't hold as much as I can. So we think that people who are older than us, like they can hold it because they're older. That's not always the case. There are people younger than me who are able to hold more. We think younger people are not able to do it because we're human, and we tend to think with age comes this like expertise. And what this experience has reminded me is that's not true. There are people, 10, 12, 14 years old who can hold so much. And there are people 60, 70, 80 years old who cannot hold anything. And it's not a matter of age or maturity. It's just about their human experiences. And so my job is to recognize that everybody's at their perfect level of conscious awareness, right? And my job too is to look and say, it's not a positive or a negative, right? But there are some 10-year-olds who can hold more than some 60-year-olds. And I'm just sort of learning as I go that there's people that are at different levels of conscious awareness, right? So anyway, one of the gifts I have is that and I can really say this to you. I can probably say this to you now in a way I couldn't even say it to you 2 weeks ago. And if you ask me what the gift of this is, because there are so many gifts, I'm being sincere with you, there are so many gifts in this whole experience. If you ask me what the gift is, you can't overwhelm me. You just can't. I can hold it. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, no matter how afraid you are, no matter how mad you are and angry, and no matter how crazy it seems, this experience has taught me I can hold it. If I can hold this, and I'm holding it, I can hold you. And I'm grateful for that today. My kids doing so beautifully, processing, grieving, but holding. My dad processing, grieving, but holding. My siblings processing, grieving, holding. So there may have been things you would have brought to me like this, where I would have said, I don't understand your pain, but I love you and I'll hold you. Today I can tell you, I understand. And as a teacher, this is a graduation for me. Now, I will tell you, I'm not through the process yet. I have her viewing. It's so weird with funeral homes. I paid for half a day with her tomorrow. Like, what? I paid for have a day with her tomorrow. For me and my sister and my brother and my kids and my dad. It's so weird. And if it's okay to share with you, I am wearing my pajamas and my robe. I am taking some Jack Daniels and all her favorite songs. I'm taking a deck of cards to play some solitaire with her one more time. And I'm spending tomorrow afternoon with her, with my brother and my sister and the kids and my dad, by ourselves. And I'm gonna laugh with her and joke with her and sit in my shitty pajamas and drink my whiskey and tell all the weird stories and play the weird songs and laugh with her about all the things. Wouldn't she love it? And then on Friday, I am giving the eulogy. But I'm not wearing black. I'm not. I'm showing up with all my shit on. I'm going to be in some bright colored, like, peacock outfit. And I'm going to swear a little bit. And I'm going to thank my creator for that woman in something other than black. And I'm going to do that. But tomorrow, I'm literally going to pull myself up next to her and I'm going to pour a shot of whiskey for her and I'm going to tell some funny stories and play John Denver and laugh with her and make jokes and kiss her on the lips. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow. So anyway, I love you. And that's what's happening tomorrow and Friday. So if you'd like to hold space with me, that'll be tomorrow evening and Friday morning and afternoon. They'd be like, hello everybody, you know what? She made me and I'm here for the party and we're gonna do this right now and step right up to the carnival, right? Anyway, it's gonna be perfect. It'll be exactly what it needs to be. All right, so tonight's class yeah. What's the new sphere? Wait, we didn't have a new sphere today. Let me know what you're wondering about. Oh yeah. She made me. She can't be that surprised. Can she? Oh, baby. I know. That's good. Okay, so today we're going through the worksheets for session 1. And I have so much to tell you. Can I just talk to you for a minute? And then I'm not going to talk about my mom anymore for the rest of the class because I don't want... you're actually going to learn about my Mercury in Cancer. And Mercury in Cancer sometimes has there's always a light and shadow, right? Sometimes Mercury in Cancer can be too emotional, so I'm trying to like cut that off. That's rose quartz back there. That's rose quartz. That's a big baby. I'll sit with it in my lap. Yeah. So I'll just say this really quick before we move on. I designed this program for you. Are you Mercury Cancer too, Nathan? Why am I not surprised? I love you. Mercury in Cancer is both my gift and my challenge, right? It's like, yeah, that's a big ball, baby. Listen, you like big balls? I got you. I got your big balls right over here. Right, Mom? Somewhere she's like, I can't believe you're talking about balls with them. But they like big balls, Mom. It's part of why they're here, Mom. I like it. I designed this class for you a year ago, right? And each of the alchemical stages, I decided when we would switch. And I decided in my partially infinite wisdom that we would transition from conjunction to fermentation in September. Now, you've been here for a minute, right? So you know what I'm talking about. Conjunction is the final stage of making it right inside of you. She died 3 days before the end of that month of conjunction. It's the process of bringing everything in you that's been separate. The good, the bad, the good, and evil, the left and the right, the masculine and the feminine, the yes and the no, the Christian and the agnostic, the whatever the two halves of you are, right? August was it. August was the last month when we would look at how different we are internally, right? That we have, I mean, forget people in your life, right? Because people in your life are just mirrors to you, right? You know this, right? So people in your life who are showing you these things, don't get frustrated with them. They're just showing you what's happening inside of you, right? Like all of this difference in the world, to get vaccinated or not to get vaccinated, or, I mean, everything, it's just a mirror of how much internal conflict there is. That's why it doesn't really faze me. You know what I mean? It's like we will all as a collective get on the same page around this virus when we're ready. Because this virus is also a teacher and it's not going anywhere. I have friends who are really powerful doctors at the leading research universities in the US and it's not going anywhere. Eventually we will learn to make peace with it, you know what I mean? And we will all find our way back to unity around it. It may take us 6 months or 2 years or 5 years. It may take us 20 years. It may not happen before I leave this planet. But this virus isn't going anywhere. It's now part of our collective, just like the flu is and these other things, right? But we've had this moment of like difference around it so that we can figure out, and I'm not trying to make this class about COVID at all, okay? But it's not going anywhere. And so it's here to teach us about how we might be able to find a middle place, right? And I say that as someone who, I'm on both sides about it. I'm an anti-vaxxer who got the vaccine because I had to, because of my illness. So there's, you know what I mean? Like I sit on both sides. When people say, oh, I feel this way about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I understand it. And when people say, oh, I feel this way about it, oh yeah, I understand. I'm on both of your sides. If you're on different sides, I'm on both of your sides. So, but it's the same thing with spirituality. I believe in God, there is no God. We've lived with this duality, this dichotomy forever, haven't we? God is real, there is no God. Somewhere in the middle we find a common ground. Sometimes we find it when we cross, right? And again, I'm not trying to make this class about COVID, because if you have strong feelings about it, I'll be honest with you, I'm not even that curious about how strong your feelings are, because scientifically this virus is here now, and then we're off, and I don't even know if vaccines are the right answer, because my doctors and epidemiologists tell me that inside of a year there'll be a strain of this that won't even respond to a vaccine. So I don't even know that we're going to fight with each other a year from now, and it doesn't even matter. But I'm sharing this with you because at some point we have to make peace. There's always a left and a right and a yes and a no and a good and a bad and a holy and an evil and a, you know what I mean? And somewhere in the middle, there is a place where we can meet each other. There's a field where we can go and find some place to connect. Right? So I don't even participate in social media around the virus or the vaccine or anything because there's no point. I mean, I'm just asking you to hold space for maybe there's no point in getting involved in all of that because it's this very low frequency human debate and very spiritual people are participating in it, which is like weird to me. But it's this very low level human debate, and then up here is this like what's actually happening in the etheric realms. And if we wait for this to unfold, then the rest of this won't even be relevant. So I'm waiting for this to show itself, right? Yeah. But what I'm sharing with you isn't even about this, because you can see the same dynamic happen in your family relationships. You can see it happening in your marriage. You can see it happening in your relationship with your kids, right? You can see it happening in lots of other contexts. So it has nothing to do with this in a different way, right? It's a much bigger conversation about the liminal space, the space between. And what's interesting is in my spiritual journey, I've had a lot of people say, well, at some point priestesses can't just stand in the middle. At some point priestesses have to say, this is right and this is wrong. And what I will tell you is, I don't know that that's true. Because at some point, the wise among us will tell you that there is no yes, no black, white, this, that, yin, yang. There has to be an integration. There has to be a unification. And that's actually what we are holding space for. I'm not holding space to be proven that I'm right. I'm actually okay with being proven that I'm wrong. I'm really okay with that. I might be wrong. I might be wrong about this. I might be wrong about everything that I've ever thought. But at some point, my goal is integration. That the yes and the no and the black and the white and the this and the that find their way to not agreement, but unification and integration. So I don't know if that helps. And I will say this, if you share that in social media, people are going to be like, oh, that's dumb and that's weak and whatever. And again, that's why my lips, except to my closest friends, are very sealed, because I've just learned that there's no point really in sharing. We're still so in this divided place that if you say something that these people agree with, then these people are going to freak out. If you say something that these people agree with, then these people are going to freak out. There's no point. So I have to wait until there's like a little bit of a merging of the energies. But here's what I'm going to say. You already know this if you've been taking this class this year and reading the worksheets and coming to the sessions and participating in the conversations. You already know this. In fact, it's the very reason that you're here. All the way up through the end of August, I was teaching you about conjunction and integration and unification and re-identification. Taking the parts of you over here and the parts of you over here and finding a way for them to unite. Right? I mean, that's what I've been trying to get you to find, is like, what is that little, and it could be tiny, it could be like the smallest point that unites us, right? But there's a place where these hemispheres, these dualities, find their union. And at first it's very tender, right? Think about how many of you have conceived a child? I've done it twice, you know, and when you first conceive, it doesn't show up on a pregnancy test. It doesn't show up. There's no heartbeat when you go to the doctor. Your body is doing this very gentle, taking the two dualities and unifying them in some way. And it doesn't become real until later. It's this little tiny mystery that you're holding inside of you, right? And I always knew when I was pregnant. You probably did too. Did you know? I knew when I was pregnant. You know, I knew when Dave and I hit it and we hit a home run. I knew. I can tell you which bedrooms I conceived in. I mean, and Dave would be like, no, and then 6 weeks later or 4 weeks later, such a Virgo. And meanwhile, I was like, I'm pregnant. And he's just like, what? Right? But but it's very quiet. It wouldn't show up on a test. It's not going to show up when you go to the doctor, right, in those early weeks, but you know there's some alchemy going on in your body that's different, right? Okay, so I share this with you because if you've had that experience, then you know what I'm talking about. There's something in you that already knows whatever is coming has been conceived. And it may not show up to anybody else, but you know. And so it's an internal knowing. And this can happen to you even if you don't conceive a human life. This will happen to you with a job that's coming to you and you know it's right for you. Or it'll come to you with your health and what's coming, and all of a sudden you'll know. And you don't have any proof of it, but there's something inside of you that's gestating, right? And so there's a little bit of that I want you to become aware of, because you may not be able to prove it or have data or post it in social media or anything like that. But there's a little part of you that's coming to an awareness of what's happening inside of you right now. And 6 months, 12 months down the road, you'll have more data to prove, right? But for right now, there's some little tiny alchemy that's going on inside of you. That's what I've been leading you through all the way through the end of August, is this coming back to you and the feminine part of you and the masculine part of you, and them saying, okay, I'm not going to fight you anymore. Well, I'm not going to fight you anymore. Well, I'm going to accept you. Well, I'm going to accept you, right? And we're like coming back to this sense of unification. And the goal of conjunction is to create a new life. And that is not a child. That's not you getting pregnant. That is you. The new life is a new you. It's a new you that is fully feminine, fully masculine, and is no longer at war with itself. Does that make sense? The new you is a new form of you that is not at war with itself. And that's where you should be right now. So if you say, well, where should I be right now? You should be, there's a new me, and I don't hate her or judge her or think she made all these mistakes, and I'm not mad at her, and I'm not resisting her, and I don't, want to run away from her, or I don't judge him or them. I don't think they made all these mistakes that can't be undone. If that's where you are, you're right on track. Okay? The goal of this year is for you to get to a place. So I gave you the conception metaphor because some of you, that'll make sense to you. It has nothing to do with conception. And believe me, I'm not conceiving shit right now, okay? That's not happening. But if you're at this place where you're like, I'm done fighting with her. I'm done judging them. I can accept him as he is. I realize she has done the best she can, and she's in a new form. I see her evolving, and she's trying. Then that is exactly where you need to be. And it's very subtle, but it's the lack of rejection. And here's what I'm going to tell you. The whole reason I'm here tonight in the middle of this really weird grieving process when I probably shouldn't be here, but I almost feel like my mom's with me right now in a way that she won't be with me next week. And so I wanted to show up with her for you in a way while I have this tender moment before she's laid to rest. This is the work of a lifetime, is to stop fighting who you are. The reason that 60%, and that's the estimate my epidemiologist gives me, okay? The reason why 60% of us have an autoimmune disease, or 2 or 3, is because we've been fighting ourselves the whole freaking time. You're weird, you're different, nobody likes you, you think weird things, you say weird things, you don't know if you don't fit in, you're not the same as all the other kids. Like, why couldn't you just? Why didn't you just? Why can't you just, right? I literally sit here with you and teach you this year because if you can master this and you can stop fighting yourself, you will heal your physical body. And you won't do it because of me, and you won't do it because of this class. You're going to do it because of you. And because we pass these autoimmune shitstorms down through the lineage, you're going to heal your children and your grandchildren. You're going to heal your nieces and your nephews, because you'll be the ancestor who said, I'm not fighting anymore. I'm not fighting this person. I'm not fighting myself, right? The fight has to stop, because your body keeps the score to the point of the book, right? I'm the first one in my family to stop the fight. And I'm really proud of that. I'm not doing it. Not internally, not externally, not to please you, not to please anybody else. And Nancy Campbell, it doesn't matter whether you have children or not. You're an ancestor. Your name is in the line. When you heal this, you will heal it for countless thousands of people who will look back to you as an ancestor. It doesn't matter whether you have children or not. Yeah. You ready to stop fighting? Are you ready to start enjoying? Stop the fight, accept the reality, right? And start enjoying this process. You have these years, these days, where nature is vibrating all around you. And if you commit to not fighting it and not fighting yourself, then you get to enjoy. You get to soften. You get to breathe. You get to relax. You get to feel really good. Because you know you're intended, just as you are. You become more beautiful. You're already beautiful, but when you finally say, I love you, to you, your beauty just goes off the fucking charts. Because it's in your eyes, right? And your whole body stops and goes, really? You're not fighting me anymore? And your digestion improves. Your immune system functions. The pain diminishes. Because your whole body goes, really? Really? You love me? Like, just as I am? Like, oh my God. And your whole body just... And then it rises back up to meet you and walk the rest of this path with you in a new form. I believe that to be true. Let me look at my notes real quick. Come on, honey. I gotta look at my notes, Ma, because I don't want to forget what I'm supposed to be telling you. Okay. And it's okay. Like Melissa said, I have a way to go, right? In this sense. But it's okay. You have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. What if, Melissa, what if everything you think is a flaw in you is actually such a gift and so intentionally designed that you can just say thank you for it? Like, what if? What if? I believe what I'm telling you is true. Just because every path in my life has led me to this as a truth. And I think a lot of people get to enjoy this when they cross from this world. But what if you get to enjoy it now? What if you don't have to wait to enjoy this? That everything about you is perfect, just as it is. Watch your whole body go, really? Really? You just love me? Even though I'm creaky and achy and, like, really? Like a child. Really, you love me? Just as I am? Watch your whole body respond, right? Yeah. When we move into fermentation, which is stage 5 of the alchemical process, this is the phase when we bring magic to life. The rest of the phases of alchemy are not alive. Well, in fact, a lot of the phases of alchemy have to do with what's dead, right, in us. This is the phase of alchemy that's alive. It has to do with you and your flesh and your blood and your bone and your physical expression and your energetic expression. Whatever that looks like, right? It's bringing you closer to the truest expression of your fullest self, right? That's what's happening right now. Bringing magic to life. And here we cut through the barriers that existed before to complete and unadulterated self-love. So before you would say, well, I love myself, except I'm lazy. I love myself, except fill in the blank, right? I love myself, except I wish I'd finished high school. I didn't get married. I didn't have kids. I'm not comfortable in my body. I love myself, except I don't love this disease that I have. I love myself, except whatever the except is after I love myself gets transmuted in this phase. And we hold ceremony for it, right? And we surrender it. And then we decide to love ourselves in the spite of it, right? Instead of whatever that perfect condition was, we just say, I love myself and there are no conditions. And then the ultimate graduation is I love myself because. I love myself because I'm heavy, dense, intense, overwhelming, different, unique, demanding, commanding, sad, shy, right? I love myself, not in spite of, because, but because I'm all those things. This creates what we call in alchemy a deeper flow state. The secret to success is actually really loving yourself without any qualification. Because the universe is waiting to see you do it. And we have 1,000 reasons not to, right? Like, well, I would love myself, but, and then again, fill in the blanks, right? So this phase is I love myself and there's no qualification. And instead of saying in spite of, it's because, can you fill in the rest of the blanks, right? There's a quote for this phase, and I'm going to try not to cry just because it's overwhelming for me, but I'm going to say it to you because you need to hear it. So if you can hold space for me while I say it to you. This is the quote for fermentation stage 5 of alchemy. What is old must die to make space for what is new and able to persist. Again, when I wrote this class a year ago, I didn't realize how pregnant those words would be. What is old must die in order to make space for what is new and what is able to persist. Now, that is a beautiful concept even to me in this moment, because there are old things in me that have to die to make room for what's new. There are old things in you that have to die in order to make space for what is new. And we are entering the harvest, and the timing of that is not lost on me. You need to be able to let go of what isn't serving you, because it can't move forward with you into this next phase. In order for you to be effervescent, in order for you to be alive and sparkling and renewed and healed, you have to let go of what is not alive in you anymore. And for some of you, for me, that's reaching back into times in my life where I was not held in sovereignty, experiences where I was bullied or unappreciated or overlooked. That's what this phase is speaking to, that those things in you, and thank you, Karen Brown, it is time, right? It is time to let go of what is old, to make way for what is new. That's this phase of fermentation. I like it, Karina said, old ways of coping and avoiding, right? The old bullshit has to go. I mean, let's just be real, right? Like, I have old bullshit. Do you have old bullshit? Old ways of coping. That doesn't work anymore. It's an old key trying to turn a new door, and it's not going to open. So we have to let go of old bullshit, old patterns, old ways of thinking. I'm not just talking about old people, although in my life that's showing up this week, right? But I am talking about old modalities and mentalities that are keeping you bound to a time where you were very small. And that may have made you feel safe and secure, and because being small is being safe, right? Like, as long as things are small, we can control them and whatever. But what's happening in the world is it's calling in a newer, higher, and bigger vibration from each of us to be able to manage these new conflicts that are requiring different energies and different ways of thinking and ways of being in the world. And you're going to have to expand to get it. So tonight's a new door. And when I talk to you about Mercury tonight, and I'm going to talk to you about your sign that Mercury's in and the house that Mercury's in, I want you to look at it as the old and the new, right? How can, my Mercury is in Cancer in the 10th house. So I am meant to speak on a deep emotional level with people publicly. And my sun's in the 10th house. So I am meant to be, if you look at my chart, I'm meant to be a public figure who speaks on emotional terms to touch people's hearts and move them toward transformation. My sun and my Mercury are like this. My sun's in Leo and my Mercury's in Cancer. So I'm meant to make you feel something, but I'm meant to move you in the direction of where your soul is supposed to go, and I'm meant to do that in a public way. So I've been teaching you for these last few years, you know, where your sun is in your chart, your yin and yang energy. Tonight I'm teaching you where your Mercury is. And then you're going to take the constellation of those planets and the location in your chart, and you're going to start to make a story, right? Just like I did. I didn't have a choice. And in fact, most of my close friends in this world have sun in the 10th house, which is like, we're public speakers, right? We're public writers. This is what we do. We share things with people openly, and that comes with its own challenges, right? So tonight, this is going to come together for you. And what I want you to take away from tonight is, first of all, we just came through a new moon, Rosh Hashanah, New Year in the Jewish tradition. It's a sacred holiday in my personal family, when we atone for the sins and mistakes of the previous year, and we set intentions and visions for the year ahead. So this is a very sacred 2 days we're coming out of as of yesterday, right? So we're in this really sacred holiday. I want you to let go tonight of the dysfunction in your methods of communication, and I want you to receive the gifts of those methods. And if you can do that, I promise you, you're going to move. I mean, this is one of those nights where, and this is why I really wanted to stay in the teaching this week. I know that my life isn't keeping up with it and I'm tired, but I didn't want to let go of this teaching opportunity. And I wanted to talk to you tonight about all of this in the wake of this new moon in Virgo and this Rosh Hashanah window, which closes tomorrow. Like I didn't, or this evening really at sundown. I didn't want to miss this opportunity to share all of this with you because we won't have another opportunity like this in 2021. It'll be next year this time before I can look at you and say, if you're really ready to do this, you can do it tonight. You can let go of the dysfunction and choose to really live into the gifts of what is functional in you, right? So Bonnie's asking, what if your Mercury is in your sun sign, Sagittarius, in the 7th house? So tonight I won't be able to get into all the nuts and bolts of your chart. I do recommend having an astrologer look at your chart. And there are some good ones in our group. Tara on Team SG also does readings. She's a little busy at the moment. I won't be able to get into all of your planets in the houses, but I am going to go through Mercury in the signs and houses tonight. And then if your sun sits alongside your Mercury, what that tells you is the main reason that you're here is aligned to how you communicate. The main reason I'm here on this planet sits right next to how I communicate. So the things that I say to you are never far from actually why I'm here, even if it seems like it, because if you look at my chart, they're literally sitting next to each other in the 10th house. So you'll want to, at some point, have an astrologer look at your chart. I would really recommend it on your journey. Choose it as a holiday gift and get your kids and your grandkids to gift you a session with an astrologer, because it will give you so much insight into what's going on between the planets, and they'll look at the houses and the planets and the signs, and then they can even progress your chart to tell you, so this is where it was when you were born, but here's where it is now, and this is why this year is important to you. I do a progression with Tara about every 12 months just to get that information, and I really recommend it, whether it's with her or somebody in our group or somebody else that you really enjoy. Yeah. Well, Alexis put up Tara's website. Yeah, I mean, if it resonates with you, there's so many beautiful astrologers in the world. Tara's really fantastic. She goes above and beyond, but you can also find somebody that you really like and see if they resonate with you too. So are you ready to go for this journey tonight? I'm excited to take you on it. Yeah. You ready? Yeah, Penelope said, I worked out my chart. I really love doing it. If you're interested in astrology, it's worth the research, and it is. And you can really break your chart down just by doing some research on your own. And then if you hire an astrologer, they can do a lot of the more subtle analysis of the interplay of the planets in your chart. Yeah, Alexis's Mercury is in Pisces. But you know what's great about that is her sun is in Pisces and her Mercury is in Pisces, which means that how she speaks is who she is. So Alexis doesn't have to, my mom would call it putting on airs. Alexis doesn't have to put on airs, just she is who she is. She communicates like a Pisces. She is a Pisces, right? So there's a lot of alignment there. I'm a Leo and double fire, but my Mercury's in Cancer, so I communicate like a water sign, but I am not a water sign. So I'm not as clear. So yeah, I'll share all that with you too as we go through. All right, Samantha, and her man's in Pisces too. And so Karen's Mercury's in Gemini, right? Like these are all the things. These are all the things. Okay. It's Dr. Pepper time. So good. So good. I found this new restaurant. It's not a new restaurant. I had never ordered food from them before. We went there this weekend for brunch, and it's like the best food I've ever had. And so I've ordered some delivery food from them this evening. for the kids, but I ordered it to arrive before I'm done teaching class. So I literally went to Nick and Zoe and I'm like, listen, if those bacon wrapped dates, if those chorizo croquettes, if that pomegranate lamb chop arrives and I'm still teaching, that gets left alone so that I have some food when I'm all done tonight. It does. Okay. Now, I'm going to walk you through your worksheet step by step. Okay. Page 1. So good. I swear to you. So Dave was talking to me while we were eating this meal this weekend. And he's talking and I'm eating because I love food. And he's like, "Are you listening to me?" And I was like there was like chorizo in my mouth with like a spicy sauce. And I couldn't even think straight. I was just like, what did you say? It was like a total spiritual transformational experience for me. Are you present with me right now? And I'm like, I'm eating chorizo. I can't be present with you right now, but I'm extremely happy. And that's what matters. Okay. So this is page 1, Communicate Your Truth with Mercury. A couple things I want to draw your attention to. In that second paragraph, it talks about falling in love with yourself again. To see something new and reborn in old places and spaces, your spark returns as we shift from the heart chakra to the throat chakra. To the ancients, this phase of alchemy was a miracle. Through fermentation, they could create incredible libations and mind-altering substances from basic ingredients that were easily gathered through available crops. Remember, the ancient Greeks fermented hops, right? I mean, you've heard about the Eleusinian mysteries, right? Where Plato did it, Aristotle did it, Hippocrates did it. All of these really powerful ancient Greek philosophers and teachers did this sacred walk, right, from the middle of Athens to the Temple of Demeter, and they were drinking fermented hops. You ferment things, and it takes you to Funky Town, right? So fermentation is this process of taking something that is not psychoactive, like hops, and fermenting it to make it into a beverage that would actually allow you to meet the gods, which happened in ancient Greece. So there's a lot of fermentation is what brings us the spirits of the spirits, as they say, right? It takes this sort of basic plant medicine or whatever you're working with, right? And it takes it and it allows you to receive it as medicine. So fermentation, if you take it out of the alchemical context and just think about fermentation of herbs and plants and flowers and things like that, this was how we had our transformational experiences back in the day, right? So it's very true. Fermentation, though, and this is true of all alchemy, fermentation can take us back to the earlier phases of alchemy. So there are some parts of this stage. Yeah, so Melissa, if you're not familiar with hops, I wouldn't even know what classes to point you back to when I was teaching about the Road to Ulysses. That was a couple of years ago, but you can go down that rabbit hole of researching the sacred way and the ancient Greeks and the pathway from Athens to the Temple of Demeter. And at some point I'll probably teach it again. I think it was last year or year before, but I can't remember. Interesting. And Dr. Carolyn's saying fermentation is what allowed humanity to progress and avoid the nasty diseases from drinking river and pond water. And to this day, we know that kombucha, for example, which is a fermented substance, when I don't feel well, I always order miso soup, which is a fermented soup. I ate a lot of kimchi. My brother makes homemade kimchi, and it's amazing. And so fermented foods are part of my daily life. I believe in fermentation. Fermented foods also burn fat, and they help to keep you at your baseline weight. So if you incorporate kombucha or miso or kimchi into your diet, when you look at Korea and Japan and countries that include a lot of fermented foods in their diet, their instances of cancer are very low. Compared to the US, where we don't incorporate fermented foods. So I do recommend, some people say, oh, I hate kombucha. And I say, okay, so if you hate kombucha, try kimchi. I hate kimchi. Well, if you hate kimchi, try miso. I hate miso. And I'm just like, I don't know if we can be friends. Because I just love fermented foods. When you're on ayahuasca dieta, when I'm preparing for ayahuasca, you cannot have any fermented foods. And it's the hardest part of my dieta prep because I can't have kimchi, I can't have kombucha, and I can't have pickles, I can't have miso soup. This is the hardest part of preparing for ayahuasca ceremonies, that you can't have fermented foods. But I love fermented foods. Sauerkraut is another fermented food. If you go to Whole Foods, you can find some really exciting fermented foods and maybe try something that will work with your palate. Sauerkraut's amazing. I love sauerkraut, but I love all the things, right? So you serve me kimchi, I'm a happy girl. Was it late 2019? Yeah. Yeah. And make your own fermented foods. I mean, if you've got something you love, then ferment it at home and you won't have to wait for other people to make it for you, right? In this phase of alchemy, we are reminded once again that life is an illusion on the grandest level. When this world is too much for me, and it has been, the political stuff really wears on me because it's like not real. It's not the truth of who we are as humans playing out, so it doesn't feel like the soul. It feels like the ego mind. I remind myself that this is a dream. This is a dream. If you look around your life and everything that's stressing you out, and if you look at it and say, that's a dream that I'm having, it will allow you to live it in a different way that doesn't sit so deeply in the core and the essence of who you are. This is just a dream, you know? So like in a dream, we don't want to cause harm. In a dream, we don't want to create division because it's just a dream, right? So we're trying to just live the dream without being the dream. That's right, Desiree Gutierrez said so beautifully, we are the dreamers of the dream, right? And so flip the script, right? Like, don't take this dream so seriously that it disrupts your peace, because it's over as quickly as it started, right? I think it is connected to memory too, Melissa. Yeah, I think so too. Because Mercury does govern the thoughts, right? On every level, which would include the memories. I think. I mean, that's my 2 cents. You guys might think differently, right? But yeah, my mom used to say, be in this world, but not of this world. Does that resonate? Be in this world, but not of it. Don't get mired down in the bullshit of it. And don't fight with people in this world. You know, it's like, be in this world, but you don't have to be of this world. There's a difference, right? Okay, and then on to page 2. It's all been coming to this. In mythology, Mercury is the messenger of the gods, and he's the trickster, the one who keeps the story going. When I when I first met Momo, God, how many years ago was it? Maybe 7. Was it 7 years? I'll have to ask him. He just messaged me the other day because he heard, I didn't tell him, but he heard that my mom had crossed. And he's been going through a lot with his mom. You know, Momo's company is called Mercurius Designs, and it's based on Mercury. And he's kind of Mercurius, you know, he's a little bit like trickster, shapeshifter, plays with words, plays with ideas, you know what I mean? Like, kind of dances in that mental realm. So I often think of Momo when I think of Mercury, the one who keeps the story going. Mercury is not attached to morals. In fact, we can call him amoral. And he's known to go both ways, in all senses of the word. Mercury wants to keep moving. Think Quicksilver. And move things to the next chapter. In life, your Mercury gets you from thought to thought and place to place. It's the story you make up about everything that frames and literally becomes your reality. Isn't it so, Momo? When working with Mercury, remember it's all kinds of communications. Mercury rules the hands and the mouth, and we definitely talk with both. It rules all types of signals and symbols, body language, ways of connecting. Your Mercury sign provides insight into how you like to communicate, what gets you to listen, what shuts you down, how you can most easily be convinced. Yeah. Yeah, Mercury is Loki. It's that sort of trickster energy, right? Not necessarily. Mercury is not just your logical principles. That's why I was reading that previous page to you. Mercury is the one who keeps the story going, and he's not attached to sides or morals. In fact, he's amoral and is known to go both ways. Mercury is all the thoughts that you have that are rational and all the ones that you have that are not rational. And Mercury will say, right, they're both true, both accurate. Mercury wants to dance with both feet, right? So it's like the rational, the irrational, the logical, the illogical, the moral, the amoral, right? Like there's no right and wrong when it comes to Mercury. And in that way, I guess what I love about it is there's no judgment. You're doing you. So sometimes you move in alignment with like rules and structures and all of that, and that's great. Sometimes you just completely say screw that and you ignore the rules and ignore the structures, and Mercury is here for that too. What does it mean, shut you down? Morgan is asking. I'll go back to my notes so that I can make sure I'm looking at the exact right place. Your Mercury sign provides insight into what shuts you down. Morgan, have you ever felt shut down? You may not have, and I don't want you to feel judged if you haven't. I have felt shut down before, and and so what that looks like to me, Morgan, is that I don't have anything that I can say. No one's listening. So I feel, if you've not felt that way, Morgan, or anybody else who's here, it feels like there's no value in your words, and so you kind of zip it. Your Mercury will tell you how and why that might happen. My Mercury's in Cancer, so if people are communicating to me in an insensitive way, that's going to shut me down. If people are rude, if people are unkind and insensitive to me as a Mercury Cancer, I'm going to go in my shell and I'm going to shut down. But different kinds of Mercuries, depending on what your sign is, will shut down in different ways. Does that make sense? So your sign, which we're going to move into in just the next minute or two, is going to tell you a little bit about where and how communication might get derailed for you. So shut down could also mean that you just feel like there's nothing else for you to say or to contribute. And that could be a traumatic experience depending on what it looks like and feels like, right? Okay, so some of you are asking about specific signs. So let's move forward because we have all of that in the worksheets and I want to bring it to your attention. So on page 3, it tells you my Mercury sign is blah, and it's in this element, right? So you want to know, for this to make sense to you, you have to know what your sign is for Mercury, and then if you happen to know what house it is, that's going to help you. If you don't know tonight, you can go and look at it later. Your Mercury is in a house, and it is in a sign. If you don't know it right now, what I'm telling you may not make all the sense in the world, but when you find that information out, it's going to make much more sense to you. Yeah. If people are insensitive, I don't talk because I just recognize that there probably isn't a place for my voice. But I've also learned not to, that doesn't break me, it just makes me a little more quiet. If people have really strong opinions, I don't get involved in that. Okay. So let's turn to page 4. So you have Mercury in Aries, Taurus, and then we start through, and we always start with Aries because Aries is technically the first sign of the zodiac. So we always start through Aries as the beginning of the cycle, right? So I'm going to run through these kind of quickly. If you have questions, let me know. If your Mercury is in Aries, you communicate very directly and forcefully. Sometimes you might talk too quickly. I was trained as a public speaker. I think a lot of you have been too. And when I was trained, what I was told is to finish your words, every syllable, so that there's space for the language. When we talk too fast, we slur our words and we move them together, and then some people who don't speak English have a really hard time keeping up because the language just goes like this, and it sounds like a song, but they're not sure what we're saying, and they nod like they know what we're saying, but they don't know what we're saying. And I taught English as a second language for a long time, and I'm a little sing-songy in my voice. So if I don't put space between my words, then people who are learning English or need that pause will have a harder time following me. So you'll notice that I really let my words land, partly because people have hearing challenges, partly because people don't always speak English, and also because I've learned that as Mercury in Cancer, my words tend to flow together and they sound like a lullaby and they can put you to sleep, but you might not be able to pay attention because sometimes they just flow together and I don't let the words land. Okay. Yeah, Hannah's saying it's a court reporter's nightmare. So if you want to learn how to communicate really effectively for groups and teams, you want to create some space between your words. And it feels awkward. Like, do I really need to create space between my words? But it's much easier for the human brain to process when we create those opportunities. Does that make sense? Okay. So Mercury and Aries, you tend to talk like this, and if you can't keep up, well, then that's just your problem because I'm talking at my regular pace, and you should just be able to follow me, and I'm telling you what to do, and what you didn't hear what I was telling you to do, well, anyway, I already told you once, now I'm going to tell you again. The first thing you need to do is this, and the second thing you need to do is this, and if you haven't, and meanwhile, you're like Charlie Brown's teacher. Right? That's Mercury and Aries. They already told you twice, and you didn't hear it the first 2 times, and now they're pissed because you weren't paying attention. Okay. Not calling you out, I'm just saying. Your communication style is very assertive because you look like you're in charge. So people go, oh, Mercury and Aries, you must be the leader. You are in charge. You sound like you're in charge. You sound like you should have a name tag that says, my name is Joanne and I'm in charge here. And then we go, oh, I should follow Joanne. Look at her. She sounds like she's in charge. Everybody follow Joanne. And then Mercury in Aries, people are like, I'm not in charge. I don't want to be in charge. Why are you following me? And it's like, because you look like you should be in charge. Aren't you wearing a name tag that says, I'm in charge, right? And then you guys get resentful. I've seen it happen so many times. But you guys are really good at getting new ideas off the ground. You sometimes forget to let people catch up with you, so then you lose people, right? But you have this real power and this ability to communicate. You just have to kind of like slow it down. Natalie's like, large and in charge, baby. That's right. Boss lady Joanne looks like she's in charge, like she should have a badge because she's got Mercury and Aries. And the rest of us, I'm like, I don't know, Joanne's in charge. What are we doing, Joanne? And Joanne's like, what the fuck, I don't know what we're doing. I'm just talking louder than everybody else and I have a badge. Okay. Mercury in Taurus. I'm Cancer. Yeah. Sorry. You're welcome. Sorry. All right. Mercury in Taurus. They're slower. They're not like Aries trying to get it all out there real fast so that you can figure it out. They're a little bit slower, okay? They're more grounded. They take time to think it through. Mercury and Taurus people, they write the speech before they give it, right? They're like, wait, do I have my speech? Let me rehearse it because I want to make sure it's the right words at the right time. They're very careful with their words. Mercury in Aries is like, wait, there was a speech? I didn't see it. I didn't read it. It's like, of course you didn't see it, right? Like Mercury in Aries thinks they are the speech. Mercury in Taurus is going to look at the speech and look at the drafts and make sure the words are good, that they slow it down, they're more grounded, they're very intentional because Mercury in Taurus does not want you to misinterpret. They are very concerned with how you're going to receive the language. They're also very concerned with how the language will impact you and how it will make you feel, because Taurus is about the feelings, and they're thinking it through, and they don't want you to be uncomfortable, and they don't want you to feel unprepared. So it's like the opposite almost of Aries, right? Now sometimes they shut down and they get too attached to how they do things or how they think about things, right? So that can be challenging too. But they're very sincere. And they like to share stories too, especially if they feel like it will help you connect to the energy of what they're sharing or what they're offering you. They will share some stories. And that can be very engaging and very interesting because Taurus has a good feel for their artists, at their core. So the words that they choose also tend to have this kind of artistic flair to them. And they tend not to engage, to Katie's point, in like the weird, like social media stuff. Can we just talk about the fact that you see all this shit play out during Mercury retrograde, don't you? The Aries are like all mad because, a lot of my Mercury and Aries friends are mad about different things, and all social media is to them is a blast of like, I don't like this and I don't like that, and if you like this then I don't like you and this stuff. And that's whereas the Mercury and Taurus people are like, well, let's really sit with how we're feeling about this and look at how our words are creating our realities right now, and that we should be mindful of how we shape our experiences through our words. And Mercury in Aries is like, I give two shits about how you feel. So there's like this weird kind of yeah, we're on Taurus still. So to find balance, you need to be a little bit more daring, right? Leave the script, go off the page, as it were, and bring more of your passion into your expression and your communication. Okay, Mercury, Gemini. Where are my Mercury Geminis, by the way? It's hard to keep up with you. They're not judgmental, they're just all over the place. I mean, Mercury in Gemini is going to have something to say about something, no matter what it is, right? So it's like, here's my something, and you're going to have something to say about something about my something, because you're Mercury in Gemini. They communicate fast in multiple directions at once. They're very curious people. They like to talk. But they are very rational. Underneath it all, the Mercury in Gemini is quite rational. And Mercury in Gemini will come to you and say, I think I understood what you were trying to say. Which, for the Mercury in Cancer, I'm like, oh, thank God somebody understood it, right? They're quite rational, right? Keep up is exactly right. They've got the best memes, the best quotes, the best responses to posts, right? They're like right on top of that. They give you the info. That's exactly right. Now, they're a little, not all of you. I mean, honestly, we don't have a lot of gossipy people in our group, but these are the gossips. They do like to know what's going on. They like the tea. sometimes they pour the tea, sometimes they drink the tea. These are the tea drinkers. You know what I mean? Like, well, I heard, well, I heard, well, I heard, well, I heard. And meanwhile, I'm over here going, you are hurting people's feelings with your words, right? These are the gossipers. But they're, again, not in a bad way. They're inquisitive. They like to know what's going on. What did he say? Well, what did she say? Well, what did he say back? Well, then what happened, right? Sometimes you spill the tea. To balance this out, you have to bring in water energy. Yeah. Right? Because think about what's across the medicine wheel. So you've got the element of air over here, water is your balancing element. So that Gemini energy needs a little Cancer, a little, whichever water sign appeals to you, a little Pisces, a little imagination, a little emotion, a little Scorpio, a little mystery, right? A little transformation to kind of balance it out. To get the kind of like, what did he say? Well, what did she say? Well, what did you say next kind of thing, right? Now, the nice thing is, if you go to Mercury and Gemini, you can probably get all sides of the story because they usually know what's going on. Well, I heard this, and then this happened. What about that? And I heard that. What I'm going to tell you about Mercury and Gemini, and I'm telling you this from my own personal experience, because a lot of my nearest and dearest are Mercury and Gemini. So I'm going to love on you for a minute. They are not judgmental. It's my favorite thing about Mercury and Gemini. They're not going to judge you. Because they can hold all of it. They're the twins, right? So they're not going to judge you when you communicate and you're upset, and they're not going to judge you when you communicate and you're happy, and they're not going to judge you when you communicate and you're overwhelmed, and they're not going to judge you when you communicate and you're... Because for them, it's all part of the soup. They have no judgment about how and when or where, right? Because they just see it all and they understand it's all part of the mix. And somewhere in the sadness and the grief and the joy and the laughter and the making fun and the memes and all of this, somewhere in the mix of all of that is the truth, and they know it. Mercury is always leading us to truth. It's just, how does it get us to truth? Is it truth through appreciating all the forms of communication, like Gemini? Is it truth through leadership, like Aries? Is it truth through beauty, like Taurus? And then there's Cancer. Right? Then there's Cancer, which is me. Mercury in Cancer communicates with feeling. You need people to be sensitive and speak to your heart. When it comes to making sense of things, your emotions inform your thinking, and you can't see things from just your point of view. We're hypersensitive. We have to watch out because we can be whiny and sometimes needy. Like even with I gave myself a time limit on Facebook to post about grief with my mom. And after that, this might sound funny to you, I had an agreement with myself after 7 days I would not post additional posts about my mom and my loss, because I didn't want to appear whiny or needy. And at some point, people's posts on Facebook are just triggering, and I didn't want to keep bringing that up for people. That's my Mercury in Cancer. My Mercury in Cancer is, we've talked about it enough. You know what I mean? Like, I can process on my own, in my own way, but I don't need to continually process on Facebook and move through. I changed my profile picture to a picture of me and my mom, but I set it for a 7-day time period, and it's already changed back. Like, these are the Mercury and Cancer things where I'm like, I don't want to be a bummer. I don't want to bring people down. I don't want to make people feel like it's all about me. Like, these are the things. When I really appreciate you saying that, but I want you to know that it's my Mercury in Cancer that makes me think of these things. I don't want to trigger you. I don't want to bring up your sad memories. I don't want to create that for you. I can move through my process without making it your process, right? Like, after this week in class, it probably won't even come up that much in class, right? Because I'm in therapy and I have 2 energy workers I'm working with. Like, I do all my work. So all to say that my Mercury in Cancer reminded me to just be mindful of other people's feelings, if that makes sense, because social media is a collective experience and we all impact each other through what we share. To find balance, we have to bring in air. We have to think, not just feel, right? Well, I'm with you. I don't think there's a timeline on grief, Stella Blue, but I'm also, what I'm sharing with you is that as a public figure, I think I have to be a little bit, my opinion is that I have to be a little bit responsible with how much I post, because at a certain point, it's not for me anymore. You know what I mean? So I'm only posting when it's authentically for me in social media. After that, I can process internally and with my collective as opposed to bringing it public. Does that make sense? So I'm not saying like my grief is over, but I'm just sort of, I'm cautious that I don't weigh it down. Does that make sense? So I'm still moving through my stages, but I don't need to bring my entire social media collective through that experience. I'm very cautious about that. Does that make sense? It's not my work in the world. My work in the world is to lift people up and to be in communion with people. So I want to be authentic, but I don't want to be like, wow, it's 3 weeks later and she's still doing the thing, right? So I don't know. That's my own kind of like, my own processing. We need to promote a smooth flow of energy through the body and spirit, and we need to work with earth or air element symbols or colors. I find that breath work, like I've been doing a lot of breath work. I've been working with my chimes. I've been going out in nature a lot. I've been exercising more than usual, and these are all bringing a lot of air energy into my spirit, into my body, which I'm finding is really helpful, because when I go to communication, I go to water, and so to balance that, I go to air. Whereas if you have heavy earth in your communication patterns, you need to go to fire. If you have heavy fire, you have to go to earth. So we need to find our balancing elements, right? With you guys, I'm pretty open. I mean, I am. I don't hide stuff from you guys, but at a certain point in social media, it's like, it's not helping me. Do you know what I mean? To keep posting about it. I do enough where I think it helps people to see that I'm human, and it allows me to receive some sweet energy. But then after that, it's like we kind of have to keep moving forward. Is my feel on that. But everybody has to move through it in their own way. You know what I mean? But even me, I'm like, I don't want to post anything else about grief. Like my mom would want me to live. My mom would be looking at me going, live your fucking life. Like, I mean, at some point you gotta like, you got kids, like keep this train going, right? Yeah. And thank you so much for your kindness. I really appreciate it. But I'm talking about this kind of in the context of Mercury. Does that make sense? Like my Mercury in Cancer, because I know that we can go too deep and it's too much for people. I've learned, right? Just like you're learning about your Mercury and kind of the edges of it, I've learned that I can go too deep for people and I need to bring it back up for air. Right? Not everybody wants to go deep sea diving with me. Does that make sense? Like not everybody wants to go to the edge of hell with me. Some people do, and I've got those people in my life and I love them. They will go all the way down with me. But sometimes I need to bring people up for air and remind them of like what's silly. Like there was a fucking funny picture today of this cat who my friend sent it to me. They had a cat be the ring bearer for their wedding, and they rolled the cat in a stroller with like a little suit on. Like what? I mean, that's awesome, right? And that is air, like laughter, funny, to balance out my deep Mercury and water. Yeah. So let's talk about fire, Julie. Let's get there. I think this is really important. So Mercury and Gemini, you guys have to bring in water. Mercury Cancer, we have to bring in air. The next one up on page 6 is Mercury in Leo, and this is fire. Okay. Who's Mercury Leo? I know some of you, right? Seriously, laughter has been so good for me, and like I love dumb stuff. Do you love dumb stuff? If you don't, it's okay. I like the memes that are just so dumb. I love watching Dumb and Dumber. Like I love like super just dumb humor. It's like my favorite thing. Don't judge me for it, but it's absolutely my medicine because I can get so deep that like I need just like kind of dumb shit to laugh about. All right, Mercury Leo, here you are in the house, okay? Um, you communicate with charisma. People really listen to you, Mercury and Leo, okay? Yeah, we did cover Mercury and Aries, so if you missed that, um, you'll be able to go back and laugh at yourself a little bit. Mercury and Leo, though, people really listen to you. Um, People pay attention when you share what you have to share, and but if you're going to listen to somebody, it has to matter to you. People listen to you, but you don't listen to everybody. You listen to people when it resonates with you. And so it's if it touches your heart or if it like really hits your soul, right? Um, the caution with this sign, just like my Mercury in Cancer can make things too emotional for people, your Mercury in Leo can make you sometimes seem a little self-centered, okay, like it's about you. And so the task for Mercury in Leo is to show that it isn't just about you, that you think about and express for energies other than your own. Does that make sense? Because Leo has this capacity to make it about themselves. And the way that Leo evolves is to prove that it isn't about them. It's actually, because nothing in life really is about us. We're just here to mirror to each other what's going on. So when you get to that point of evolution, you'll realize this isn't just for me, right? This is for other people to be able to identify. Now, how you balance is with Earth. Remember that fire sits across the wheel of the elements from Earth, right? So fire has to balance through Earth, and Earth has to balance through fire. So what does that mean? So you need to get very grounded before you communicate. You need to work with your grounding stones like hematite and jet and garnet, black tourmaline and onyx and obsidian. Like when you go to speak in public, do you guys know about communication gridding? It's true, Desiree. I'm a Leo. I mean, I like to think that I'm all those things. But when you communicate like a Leo, you can be overbearing. You know, it can sound like you're lecturing, even if you're not trying to lecture. And that's why I give you these kind of tips about how to do that. Can I talk to you for a minute about gridding your communications? It's a real practice. Okay, so parentheses everything I'm saying, because we're talking about Mercury. And we can talk more about this if this is interesting to you. I can come back and kind of double click and share more of my thoughts. When you post in social media, especially if it's something that you're not sure about how people are going to react, okay? When you write a letter to someone, I'm working on my mom's eulogy, for example, right? Which is the last thing anybody's going to say about her for the rest of her life, and my siblings want me to give it. Those communications should be gridded. And what I mean by that is, some people do this physically. They will print out the post, they'll draft it and print it out. I'm printing out the eulogy, and they build a grid on it, a copy of it, like a big post. You know what I mean? If you're going to post something really significant, I've seen some really significant posts in social media recently, like where people are like taking down an ex-boyfriend, or I mean, I've seen some weird shit in social media recently, like really big stuff where there's one post in particular in my community that I don't know how it's not a karmic harm. I really don't. I keep watching the dialogue that's unfolding, and I keep thinking, I would not want to be in the karmic line of fire for that, but I'm trusting that everybody involved knows what they're doing and that they're gridding those communications, because I would feel very concerned if I was, when you post on social media with the intention to cause harm to another person or to judge them, that if you want to do that, I don't recommend it, but if you find yourself in the position of feeling like you need to do something like that. And again, it's happening in not in our soul shift community. I'm in a lot of weird communities. This is happening in like a whole other yoga community, okay? But they're all gathering around this one person with the intention of kind of bringing this person down. And I keep setting the intention as I read some of this stuff, and I'm not reading it anymore because it feels so dense and not good. But those should be gridded posts to raise the frequency of them, because I don't know what's happening, but I don't know those people well enough to know what, I don't know how to help, but I don't know if it's my place, but I keep reading it going like, I don't think I would want to be on the karmic receiving end of some of that stuff. So anyway, you should grid your communication with really high frequency stones. What are the really high frequency stones? Synergy 12, apophyllite, as much quartz as you can manage, are high frequency stones. Stones that align to the crown chakra, the soul star chakra, which would include like morganite, apophyllite, quartz, all of the zeolites. Rose quartz rose quartz is kind of more heart chakra, but stones that align to the crown and the soul star chakra, those are the stones that should be in a grid for communication. So if you're going to post something where you feel like this is really heavy, this could hurt someone, you know what I mean, this could hurt me, whatever it is, before you post, you should print out your post, set it somewhere, and grid with the intention of raising the vibration for the collective well-being. And again, I don't know if this is happening in the dynamic that I've been seeing. I keep, it's just so weird how Facebook keeps delivering stuff sometimes. It's like, what are we supposed to learn from that? But anyway, if you post something, if you send a letter to someone, if I'm doing the eulogy, I'm going to be gridding a copy of the eulogy just to make sure it's in the highest possible frequency. Like, I think my mom will love what I'm going to be reading about her, but I still want it to align with the highest possible frequency of the love that I have for her. Does that make sense? I personally don't recommend ever using your gift of communication to cause harm to another human being for any reason. I've never seen that work well for people. I've only seen that cause harm, because at the end of the day, if we are seeking to harm another person, then ultimately that comes back to us, and I believe it comes back to us multifold. So I think if we have the intention to cause harm to somebody, that comes back to us in a multiplied sort of way. So my recommendation is that you don't do things like that. But if at some point you find yourself saying, I just have to go and do this thing or whatever, I would at least grid it to make sure that you manage the energy and bring it to the highest possible frequency that it can land. I believe in letting the universe do karma. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe me as a human that I need to solve these things, but like I said, I see it in social media all the time, and I don't know what people's intention is. I'm going to be doing a very basic grid on my mom's eulogy, which is just a quartz point. I'm doing celestite, morganite, fuchsite. What was the other one I chose? Smoky quartz with rutile. Those are the stones that I'm gridding her eulogy with. I won't judge you. I mean, you got to do what's right for you. But I would just say, use your powers for good. I haven't seen it work out for people when they don't. But that doesn't mean that people don't do the thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when you grid something, you set an intention with it, right? So that the energy that whatever comes back through that thing, whether it's a post or a letter or a eulogy or a poem or whatever it is, that the energy that you send out comes back to you in the highest vibrational form, is what I would say. I think it'll be real good for my mom. So mine is kind of a basic one, just to make sure that I'm speaking in alignment with the highest possible frequency for her healing and transition. But I'm broadening this out to talk about the fact that I think sometimes if you're going to post something in social media that's a real bomb, whatever it is, I would grid it. Just so that you're working with the highest possible resonant frequency for the collective versus what's only serving you. Yeah. Okay. So earth element, work with garnets. If you're Mercury Leo, wear clothing with earth element symbols or in colors that are aligned with the direction of earth. So wear lots of greens and browns to help you bring patience and responsibility to your actions. Okay. Mercury Virgo. Do I have any Mercury Virgos in all of this? Yeah. It's okay to drop bombs as long as you're aware that you're dropping a bomb and as long as your intentions are in alignment with the highest good. It's like, okay, then you're doing something that's okay. Mercury Virgo communicates precisely and logically. You need people to pay attention to details. You have a tendency to overthink, right? That's Sherry and Terry, right? And Rebecca. There's Christine and Daimichi and Nurse Sandy. Oh, Nurse Sandy is Mercury Leo. Elizabeth is Mercury Virgo. Teresa's Mercury Virgo. Look at that. And Donna Cordova's there. And then Rachel says, my husband is Mercury in Virgo and Sun in Virgo. That's me too, by the way. So I completely understand your pain, Rachel Gardner. The overthinking is the thing. I call it spinning. Do you ever think about it like spinning, Rachel Gardner? I help Dave out of his spinning because he spins on things. He just burrows in and he can't not do it. And I can tell when he's spinning. I've been with him for 20 years. So I can tell by the look of his face when he's spinning on something. And I'm just like, you're freaking spinning on that, man. Like, let it go. Right? So do you guys spin? Do you do the overthinking spinning thing? To balance that, to get yourself out of it, you want to bring in the fire element. That is, lighting a candle will shift that for you. Work with marcasite, which will bring fire energy. Work with carnelian. Wearing clothing with the fire element symbol or in the fire element colors, orange and red, will help you. Having somebody look at you and go, you're spinning, right, will help you. But it's the spinning. I mean, literally at night, I can't tell you how many times in the 20 years I've been sleeping next to the man, where I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and I'll look over at him, and he's like this. He's like looking up at the ceiling, and I will just go. It's like, like he doesn't even realize what's happening, right? So you know that you spin. And you have to watch in your communications because Mercury in Virgo will sometimes post. Ancestralite, Cindy Conti would be a great stone medicine for this. Sometimes when they post, they'll post the same thing like over and over and over again. It's like, okay, we got the message, right? Like, we're good. We got it the first time you posted it. Now you've posted it a second time. You posted it a third time. Like, genie in the bottle has to come out and go ding, right? So usually these people with Mercury Virgo, what's helpful about them, this is an incredible position for success, academic success, because they can stay focused on a topic for a really long period of time. So they tend to be really good students. They tend to, like teachers love Mercury Virgo because they're like focused and they're on task and they're, like they never lose sight of what they're trying to do. But sleeping next to them, right? Like, we're going to flip the script. So each one of the Mercuries has a gift, right? The Mercury Virgo is, I'm focused, I'm aware, I'm solving the problem, I'm taking care of it, I'm making sure everybody else knows what's going on, I'm communicating clearly and effectively, I'm communicating in a logical manner, like all these things. But then it's the spinning. It's the spin. And that's where they get stuck. And they have to realize that they're spinning. And then all of a sudden the record stops skipping, right? Okay, Mercury Libra. You communicate with style and grace, darling. You need people to listen and work with you. You can always see both sides of a situation. Well, I talked to her and she said this, and I talked to him and he said that. And if you look at her side and if you look at his side, then you realize they're both right. And it's like, okay, but what do you think? And then Mercury Libra will be like, well, I don't know. My opinion doesn't really matter. What matters is she believes this, and he believes this. Is like the perfect like therapeutic profile for Mercury placement. It's really good for teachers, for mediators, right? Like he said this and she said that, so I think there's value in both sides, you know. And it's like, what? And Mercury in Cancer's like, I feel like you just won't choose a side. Right? And Mercury in Libra's like, well, you are correct. I'm not going to choose a side because I think he has a point and I think they have a point. And it's like, right? Yeah. Can you grid for someone else's post if it's going downhill real quick? If you have their permission. Can't ethically grid for people without their permission. But you can reach out to them and go, shit's sliding downhill, baby. You want me to grid this? And see what they say. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I haven't talked houses yet, Jalen, but I'm getting there in just a minute. So stay with me. Mercury in Libra cares too much what people think about what they say. Mercury in Cancer does too. You got to bring in water. Right? You're up here. Well, I think this, and then she thought that, and then when I posted it, she told me that what it made her think about was back when she was in 5th grade, and then he said, well, 5th grade was really traumatic for me, and then it's like, okay, but how do you feel? Oh, I don't know how I feel. Blue calcite can help open the throat chakra and connect you to the heart chakra. You need stones to mitigate some of the negative energy because Mercury in Libra is worried about making people mad. You don't want to piss people off. I told her I saw a lot of value in her perspective, right? Mercury Scorpio communicates with intensity and depth. You guys are too much for some people, but here's the thing. I mean, you know, we're all too much for some people, right? Not everybody can handle a Mercury in Scorpio. Because you're not going to sit here and talk with me about, you know, superficial stuff. You want to talk about the nature of the universe and why we're here and how we can improve our lives and what matters. And you get real frustrated with small talk because you're not here for small talk. But that's true for Mercury in Cancer, that's true for Mercury in Pisces, and that's true for Mercury in Scorpio. That shit's not interesting to you. You're like, why don't you talk to somebody else about what's your favorite? Are you like this cracker better than this cracker because it's crispier and crunchier? Like, I don't care, right? You guys aren't here for that. You need people to be honest with you. Mercury in Scorpio drives you nuts when people lie to you because you know that they're not telling you the truth. Same with Mercury in Cancer and same with Mercury in Pisces. I know when people are lying. I don't always tell them that I know, but I know when they're not telling the truth. And it drives me nuts. And it drives Scorpio the most nuts of all the signs. It's true. They don't like it. Try not to take things to extremes. Recognize that your communication style is powerful already. You don't have to intensify it to make your point. Don't always suspect the worst about people too. There's a little bit of like, well, I don't think she's honest, or I don't think she was paying attention, or I don't think she's ready for this, or I don't think she's, you know, it's like, don't do that. The Mercury and Scorpio thing can lead you to some assumptions about people that might not be accurate. So don't go into that dark place about like, well, I told her that and then she lied to me, and it's like, okay, let's let it go. You know, we need some Mercury and Libra energy there. Let's let it go. Maybe there's something true on both sides. Now, I love me a Mercury and Scorpio because I want to go all the way. I want to talk about aliens and death, and I want to talk about the outer realms of the universe and multidimensional communication. And so I can do that with my Mercury Scorpio people all day long. They're like so here for that. So I'm into it, but then some people find it a little bit too much. So that can happen too. And you're going to balance with air as well because you're opposite the wheel from the air element. So you're going to balance with air. Mercury Sagittarius, you communicate really bluntly. Sometimes you need to be a little bit softer. Not everybody can take your hard edge, right? Now you think you're just being honest. I don't know where my mom's Mercury position was. I haven't looked at her chart in so long, but I think she was Mercury Sag. My mom would always say, well, I'm just giving you the honest truth. And it's like, okay, well, but not everybody needs your honest truth, right? Because your truth isn't necessarily my truth. And I didn't ask for it. So that's a little bit of Mercury in Sagittarius. You can sometimes make people feel not as smart as you are because you feel like you have truth, and like, so some other people don't have truth, and so it's like, well, I have my truth. And it's like, yeah, but what about my truth? Is my truth not as truthy as your truth? You don't like my truth as much, right? You're bold, you're exaggerated, you do motivate people. I mean, you get people, your milkshake brings the boys to the yard, but it's like, it's how you do it, and being a little bit gentle and kind of, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you're a bull in a china shop. I love it. Millie says, but I'm honest and I'm right. And that's what my mom would say. Well, but you know, I'm still right. Even if you disagree with me, you know that I'm absolutely correct. And it's just like, and then what people end up doing is saying, okay, Mercury, Sagittarius, you're correct. But meanwhile, we're like, I wish you would go to therapy. I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? Like, it can be a little overbearing for people where it's just like, well, I just have to speak my truth. And it's like, to everybody, every day, everywhere. Do we all need it? You know what I mean? So to find balance, you got to work with the earth element. Ruby zoisite is a good stone to combine fire and earth. And then, you know, you can work with the earth element in other ways too. Working with herbs and getting grounded and spending time in nature and all those things will help you not be so like. And I can hear my mom going, I don't care what you say, I'm right. And this is my opinion. And it's like, okay. I mean, at some point you just kind of have to like go, okay, we're good. You know what I mean? Like, if your Mercury's in Capricorn, you communicate with authority. People automatically assume you're the smartest person in the room. And that's a lot of pressure. Do I have any Mercury in Capricorn? I do love you, Mercury in Sagittarius. I do. You crack my shit up. Sometimes you make me cry. Because I'm Mercury in Cancer and my feelings get hurt. All right, Mercury Capricorn, do I have them? People respect you. You need respect. People follow your directions and they think that you're right because oftentimes you are right. You're kind of the northern star of the Mercury positions. Like, you tend to know where to go and how to get there, and you're pretty good about teaching people the way. You have to be careful about being too bossy. I mean, you are usually right, more right than the Mercury and Sagittarius people are because you're more grounded. But you can be so focused on leading other people that you forget to lead yourself. So it can look hypocritical, the communication sometimes, right? People listen when you talk and you get things done, but you can be too demanding and you can be so focused on the letter of the law that you forget the spirit of the law. Do you know what that means? You can be so focused on we have to do this, this, and this that you forget there's 10 different ways to do it. So it's like slow down and let it be. Don't insist that it's your way or the highway kind of thing, right? And to find balance, you got to work with fire. Go hang out with a Mercury and Sag, right? Indeed, Janisa, it does. And so some positions are stronger than that, you know, stronger because the sign rules the planet or the planet rules the sign. You can work with your root chakra if you are Mercury and Capricorn to help balance you out. You can also work with your sacral chakra. to like loosen you up a little bit so you don't have to follow the rules all the time. Sarah's like, my kids don't listen to me. But kids don't listen to anybody, Sarah. Like, how many times has Zoe come back to me and go, so like, I totally know that you told me this thing, but like, because it was you, I didn't listen. But then this other person told me the same thing, and it turns out it was true. And it's like, and I feel like my face is like this. Anyway, when you told me, I totally wasn't listening, but like this other total stranger told me, and then I was like, yeah, like that totally makes sense. Like I think my mom told me that, but like it was my mom, so like, oh, I didn't pay attention to that. Look, as long as she gets the information at some point, I don't care if it's from me or somebody else. I'm just not as cool, right? Okay, Mercury and Aquarius. You guys just communicate differently. You guys are just weird, you know what I mean? And awesome. You think outside the box. You come up with different ideas, right? So like, maybe we could communicate this way. Hey, we haven't tried this other thing. Mercury and Aquarius is like the best therapist you can find because they're going to be like, have you tried this? And have you tried that? Have you tried this? And have you tried that? And it's like, no, and I'm going to try all these different things now to see what works, right? Well, sometimes people write to me and they're like, do your kids listen to you, Sage Goddess? Because my kids don't listen to me. And I write back and I go, no, my kids absolutely don't listen. I mean, like 50% of the time they listen, and 50% of the time they don't listen. And it brings people a lot of comfort. You guys are really good at making sense of things. Where am my Mercury in Aquarius, right? You're also really good at seeing patterns in how people think. So you can kind of see like they thought this way about this, and then this way about that, and this way about this, and you can kind of see the patterns. And you're better at it than some of the other placements. So it's a really great place for Mercury. It can be frustrating for people, but it's just because we're not ready for you. You know, like you're next level, and we're kind of still like, you know, fumbling through this human experience. Sometimes though, you're too opinionated. You know, Mercury in Aquarius will be that like, I'm telling you my opinion because it's the truth and you need to hear it, versus I'm sharing my opinion because it's my opinion and maybe it will help you, right? There's a little bit of a difference there. So just being more open-minded. You have to be able to, you believe in bending the rules, but sometimes you don't bend them. You'll get oddly rigid, and it's like, stay with your belief in bending the rules, because that's actually what makes you a very effective communicator. And then you're going to balance through water. Remember too that Aquarius and Virgo are the two signs of service in the zodiac. And through your communication, whether you're Mercury in Virgo or Mercury in Aquarius, you're here to communicate to help the collective. You're here to help us heal. You're here to help us grow. But sometimes you guys can be too dogmatic in how you do that. And so learning from the other placements can help you be more open-minded, open-hearted, you know what I mean? So you're not coming from this like real dogmatic place. Because when you communicate in a dogmatic way, whether it's to a child, I mean, I taught freshmen in college for a long time, and I can tell you, if I went in dogmatic with a freshman in college, they will just shut down and not listen to me at all. Because I'm just going to sound like their parents, right? So I had to learn how to communicate with 18-year-olds in a way that like get them to respect me, but like not see me as a parental authority. So I think that's the best training for my communication in my professional career is working with 18-year-olds. But you have to recognize like some people are just not going to listen to you if you come in hot, because they don't want that, and it's going to trigger everything in them about being controlled and being constrained. And so sometimes we have to be more chameleon-like in our communication so that we can sense where people have boundaries and barriers and be able to work around those to reach them, right? So what I'm hoping you're taking away, and thank you, Rochelle, yeah, we're almost finished tonight too. What I'm hoping you're going to take away from tonight's class, because this is what I've done. I mean, if you look at my life and my career, and I'm not bragging, but I've done really well in the area of communication. I really have. I've been a professor. I've been a corporate executive coach around the world. I've taught communication skills and styles to people in college and graduate school, and now I communicate really for a living through Sage Goddess. And one of the things I've had to learn is I have to be every sign. So that if you're a Mercury in Cancer, I don't come to you as Mercury in Cancer because I already know how that's going to land with you. I have to come at you. Usually, if you're a water sign, I got to come at you from an air sign. I have to communicate with you like Mercury in Libra or Mercury in Gemini or Mercury in Aquarius because I already know what your blockages are going to be. So I'm going to have to come at you from the other direction. If you're an Earth sign Mercury, I'm going to have to come at you from fire because you're already going to be stuck a little bit by virtue of being in an Earth sign. So I'm going to have to come at you with this energy of transformation to be able to shift you out of your patterns and ways of thinking and believing. And same with a fire. If you're a Mercury fire, I'm going to have to come at you with some grounding and some data and some information and some facts, because that's all that's going to appeal to you to shift your perspective. So I'm teaching you tonight not just what you are, but at the end of the day, you've got to internalize what all 12 of these are. Because if you're a coach or a healer or a teacher of any kind, or you are raising children or family members, or you have extended family in all these different placements, your superpower is going to be the capacity to understand where people are coming from and how to reach them. And we can't reach people where they are most of the time. We have to reach them from a balancing element, from a balancing position. So if they're too stuck in air, we got to come in with water. If they're too stuck in earth, we got to come in with fire. And that's why I teach you the elements. That's why you're getting certified as an elemental healer this year. You're never going to meet fire with fire and have a breakthrough. You're going to meet fire with earth and have a breakthrough. You're never going to meet air with air and have a breakthrough. You're going to meet air with water and have a breakthrough. And they're going to go, oh my God, I had no idea I could feel all these things. And it's like, well, yeah, because you've been stuck in air and I'm bringing you your balancing element. And they don't have to know that that's what you're doing, but that ultimately, at the end of the day, is the shift. Right? And if you're a head of a household like I am and a matriarch of a family like I am now, I got to know everybody's position everywhere and be able to meet people, not just where I want them to be, but where they are, with my intention of where I'm going to take them. I want to move them toward a different perspective, or I want to move them toward a new awareness. And it's not about what I want them to have, it's about what they need to have and how can I provide that. So I become a shapeshifter, I become this sort of chameleon, I can meet you where you are, but I'm already thinking about, so if I know your Mercury is in Cancer, I'm going to come at you with either some Gemini, some Aquarius energies to be able to meet you there and to be able to work you around that, because I'll know where your blockages are. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Two more I want to share with you. Is it two more or one more? Just one more, actually. And then I'm going to share the houses. So we're going to go for about 5 to 10 more minutes. If you're able to stay, it's lovely. If you're not able to stay, you can sign off and watch the rest of this later. And then I'll sign off with you in 5 or 10 and head over to Papa's house. Is this interesting? I'm so glad this is helpful for you, because your job as a teacher is to meet people where they are, not where you want them to be. We don't get that luxury as teachers. We don't get to meet people in their highest evolutionary form. We get to meet people right where they are, boots on the ground, and then help elevate them and transform them into a different form where they can move forward on their path. But we don't get to meet people where we want them to be. And so every time I give you one of these little keys to unlock the door, it's like, okay, so what do I do with this? And the level 1 is self-awareness, right? You're learning about yourself tonight. But level 2 is awareness of others. And then level 3 is awareness of the collective. Where are we right now? Right now, we would say we're in an Aquarian age. So we're collectively in Mercury Aquarius. Can I just say something real quick? Because I think this is important. Mercury in Aquarius, the downfall of Mercury in Aquarius is that it's judgmental and it's disconnected and impersonal. Look at what's happening on our planet right now. It's judgment and it's impersonal. Right? We're kind of in a service mode, but we're only going to serve you if we agree with you. For me, that encapsulates and summarizes the entire dynamic on our planet right now. I'm only going to help you if you're also getting a COVID vaccine. I'm only going to help you if you're not getting a COVID vaccine. Right? It's like, but that's not serving the collective. Like, where's the collective? And it's like this sort of mentality So then we have to come in with water. I understand your perspective. I appreciate your perspective. I recognize that you're different, right? I recognize that we are not the same. And so it can meet the rigidity of that Mercury and Aquarius moment where it's like, I'll help you if I agree with you. It can meet that with some tenderness. Does that make sense? It's fascinating stuff, this moment that we're in. So Mercury in Pisces communicates with imagination and empathy. You need people to have compassion to help each other. You also, though, don't need a lot of answers. You don't have to explain a lot to people with Mercury Pisces. Anybody Mercury Pisces in the collective, right? It has to feel right to you. It doesn't need to make sense to you. Interesting, right? It has to feel right to you. So when I'm communicating with Mercury in Pisces, I need to get you here. It doesn't matter whether all the numbers add up. It matters whether it lands with you in your heart space. And if I can get to your heart space, then I can access you here. But if I don't touch you here, it's not happening, right? Be careful of indulging illusions. You have to deal in the world of information and facts. Sometimes Pisces, especially Mercury Pisces, wants to live in like the fairy realm, and it's la la la. And it's like, yes, and I love that, and I'm all about that, but I also live in a human world where I can't just be immersed in the realms of fantasy, right? You have to be aware too. Mercury Pisces sometimes only hears what they want to hear. They don't hear everything. It's selective hearing sometimes with Mercury Pisces. Like, they'll come back and say, well, what I heard from you is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but that's only like a third of what I said. And they're like, well, that's all I heard, right? It's a little dreamy, but it's also really a sweet place to be. And communicating, I mean, I'm a water sign in my Mercury, so I have this appreciation for the other water signs, but there's a little bit of like, I like living there too with you guys and how you think. Bring in air element energy to balance it, right? And to bring some logic and data, right, to the conversation so that you're anchored more in facts and not as much in fiction, because that can be the real downfall. But these are people who can write beautiful poetry and beautiful stories, and they can, through a guided meditation, I mean, oh my word, they can take you in and around and down and up, and it's like you never want to leave it. But we don't live in that realm of the fantastic, right? So we have to be able to live in the anchored human world too. But it's fun. Okay, so there's a little chart on page 10. I won't read this to you, but you can go through it. And it tells you elementally. So if your Mercury's in a fire sign, earth sign, air, and water, it gives you a general breakdown of the style, the voice, the body language, right? Which is so true for me. Like, I'm all water, right? I pick up on subtle signals. I let emotion take over reason sometimes, and I can be hypersensitive. But understanding and empathy are really important to me. So you can kind of like chart your positives and negatives on that side as it goes down. And then on page 11, again, still breaking down elementally, and then it takes you through irritations, how you're seen, their values, fears, examples, and so on. Yeah, and then this is the elements that correspond. Okay, the last thing I want to tell you, and I'm going to walk through this real quickly, but this is just to give you, this is like a double click on your worksheets, but I like to talk about the houses too. So now you've looked at where your Mercury is, like what sign it's in, what element it's in. Now let's talk about the houses. If your Mercury is in the first house, then your Mercury shows up in your way of being and in your appearance. It's how you talk, it's how you act, it's how you live, it's how you look. So if it's in your first house, your way of communicating the world is actually also part of how you look and how you move in the world. If your Mercury is in the second house, all of this is affecting the mind, The second house is mental. So it's that primarily, your Mercury is definitely going to affect how you think, more than it's going to affect me, for example, because my Mercury is in the 10th house. If your Mercury is in the third house, you are going to be, this is mental too, but it's less practical. You're going to be curious, you're going to be inquisitive, and likely to be distracted. So you'll want to look at how the way you think about the world can distract you from your focus, whether it's your career, your family, or other things in your life that matter to you. If it's in the fourth house, this is the house of imagination. So this is going to, how you communicate is going to impact how you, or how you experience your imagination is going to impact how you communicate. So this is, big artists have their Mercury in the fourth house. It's how they create videos and movies and songs, and they come from that. They have this incredible source of inspiration around their communication. If it's in the fifth house, your voice, it's going to impact your voice as a creative tool. So your Mercury can show up in how you sing, how you speak, spoken word poetry, for example, or books that you write. It's how you express your voice in the world. If it's in the sixth house, you're in the details. So through the details of your life, what you do, how you manage it, how you articulate it, how you break it down, is how you're going to express yourself. But you're going to be more focused on the details. And that's the capacity for overthinking that we talked about earlier. In the seventh house, we've got partnerships. So your communication is going to impact your relationships more than other people. And no, Mercury is always in a house. You just got to figure out which house your Mercury is in. If it's in the eighth house, that is human motivation, and that also relates to healing, medicine, and education. So your communication is going to impact how you educate people and how you heal people if it's in the eighth house. Did I not put ninth house down? No, ninth house is, eighth house is human motivation, ninth house is knowledge and learning and teaching. 10th house is your profession. So, and that's where mine is. So communication is going to be what you do for a living. I talk for a living, which drives my husband crazy. But he also knows that I've been a teacher all my life since I was 19 years old. I started teaching, actually 18. I started teaching 7th grade. And I've taught every level, and then I've taught you. So, I talk for a living, and I communicate for a living, and I express for a living, and so that's my 10th house. So it's going to become part of your career. The 11th house is going to be, the 11th house is all about curiosity in your internal life. So your communication is going to lead you to your passions in life and what it is that really interests you. And this can often be a placement for therapists. This can be a placement for writers as well too. It's like gets you interested in the human psyche and how we express and communicate. And then the 12th house is the house of mystery, right? Death, transformation, subconscious communication. So in the 12th house, your Mercury is going to show up as how you engage the great mystery. So this can be analyzing what people don't say, which is very interesting. Anybody have Mercury in the 12th house? You're very good at understanding what people don't say. What's left unsaid. The space between people's words. That's where the 12th house has its expertise. I've always wished my Mercury was in the 12th house, and it isn't. Because I thought how fun that would be to be an expert in the unspoken communication. I'm an expert in the spoken, articulated communication, but how fun to be an expert in the unspoken, the subconscious, what's between the words that doesn't get said. And so all of you who have that gift, I think you should really juice that. You know what I mean? Because there's something magical in being able to understand communication that is underneath what's spoken. And you guys have a unique gift to be able to get in there and parse that out and make sense of all of that, which I think is really cool too. And that, my darlings, is session 1 of September. We have so much work to do. Oh my God. We're going to open the throat chakra. I was going to lead you through a meditation tonight into your throat, but I'm going to do that at week 3. You'll have all your tools by then too, so you'll be able to have everything you need. We're going to really get into your voice box this month. I've hired a vocal coach who's turning out just to be a friend, which is a really fun relationship. So, and I didn't hire her or find her. We kind of found each other, and the timing of it is really crazy. But anyway, it's funny that even my own throat chakra is being activated through this whole process. So lots to come. It was a lot, right? Okay, so thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me continue to teach you through my grief process, because I'm not going to do a perfect job. There'll be times where I break down. But what I do in the world heals me too. So whereas a lot of people in my position would take a couple weeks off or cancel, I don't want to do that. I want to try to keep my routine as much as I can. It will be offline tomorrow and Thursday. It's my mom's viewing tomorrow, and it's her funeral on Friday. And then I'll be back with you this weekend. And you know what? Like, we just keep fucking going on. But thank you for allowing me to keep doing this work with you, because I'm processing, but being with you is a very healing experience, and I'm not a pull the blankets over my head kind of girl. So it's been really good. I also think this information that I'm sharing with you right now can really change your life if you allow it to, and especially if you take it to heart, like I said, where it's not just about you, but it's about when you walk into that classroom full of your students, or you walk into that meeting with your client, or you sit down with your husband, or you talk with your children, or you meet with your whatever it is, right? Like, if you can find out what people's different placements are, it will really allow you to express in a way that's much more efficient and effective. And it will change the dynamics of your relationships. Otherwise, we keep going like this because I'm trying to communicate with you and you're trying to communicate with me. And if we're at odds, you know what I mean? It's not going to work. So this can be a real shift in your relationship. And so I'm a real believer in what I'm sharing with you tonight, because I've integrated it into my practice. I've been working these principles for a really long time. And I have found, as a teacher, as a parent, as a daughter, as a wife, you know what I mean? I think that these are the real paradigm shifting teachings, where it's like, if I keep coming at you from that one direction, I'm not going to reach you. So I've got to find a way. If I really want to communicate with you, I have to find a way in. So thank you. We are not going to Denver this year because of COVID, which is a big bummer. And also the people that I go to Denver to buy from are not going because of COVID. So unfortunately I will not be in Denver this week. It would have been difficult to go anyway with the funeral. I would have been leaving today, I think, or yesterday for the show, which is really crazy how life can change. I'm hoping to be able to go to Tucson though. I'm hoping that we'll get these variants under control, but it's too risky because there are too many breakthrough infections of COVID, and my daughter and I don't have great immune systems, so we have to be super duper careful right now, which means really not flying in the throes of all of this is probably a good idea. But I get to live vicariously through friends and clients. A lot of my colleagues in the gem and mineral world have already had COVID, so good for them. And then I get to watch them go and do the thing and sit back and sit in my place. And Tucson will be great, and also I'll be so grateful for it. You know, by the time Tucson comes, it'll be 2 years since I'll have been at a gem show, and I will be beyond ready for that. But if you're going to Denver, I hope you have a really good time, and and enjoy it for me, as I won't be there this year, unfortunately. Hard to believe 2 years ago we had a shop at Denver, right? We had our little booth at Denver, and like 2 years later, I can't even go. But anyway, we'll see it. We'll see it when it comes. All right, I'm gonna go hang out with Dad. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. Thank you, Alexis, for being there. Super duper appreciate you too. And so I'll be offline tomorrow and Friday. Alexis will be with you during the day. I'll be back with you on Saturday for my midday lives. So I hope you can come and see me this weekend. I would love to see you. My mom's viewing is tomorrow afternoon, and her funeral and ceremony are Friday morning through about 2 p.m. So if you think of us at all during that time, I would really appreciate you sending the highest possible vibrational energy. Like I said, I'll be giving a eulogy on Friday, and it would just be so nice to feel the wind beneath my wings as I take that very important step for my family. And I'll see you on the other side of that experience. I will see you on the other side of that experience. Perhaps changed by it in some really important ways. I'm gonna go kiss my dad. I ordered him lamb for dinner. So I'm gonna go take him some dinner. We are actually burying her at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. So that's 4 p.m. Eastern time, that's 9 p.m. UK time, just to break it down by your zones. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to ask too much, but like, just if you think of me in that hour, I just would be so grateful. We're going to release doves, and Zoe has asked to be the one to release the first dove, and I thought, isn't that so right for the next generation of that female line to release a dove in her grandmother's honor? Won't that be beautiful? I'll try to take a picture or something so I can share it with you when she releases that dove on Friday. That'll be the last thing we do. So tomorrow's the viewing in the afternoon, where I'm going in my pajamas with a deck of cards and a bunch of John Denver playlists. That's not the glamorous part. Friday is the funeral. Tomorrow is just for me to go and sit next to her and laugh and pour her a shot of amaretto that she can't drink, and play some cards and swear and tell some inappropriate jokes. Friday is where I will really need that moment, when my son is carrying her casket as a pallbearer and my daughter is releasing the doves. I'm gonna need a moment. Yeah, so Friday between 1 and 2 p.m. Pacific time, I would really appreciate your energy. All right, you guys, mwah, love you. I'll see you this weekend, and I look forward to it.